We're going to be looking this morning as our opening verses in Luke chapter 12. And we're going to be picking up with verse 16 in just a few minutes. I noticed that people today tend to write when it looks like everything is just going swell. They write the phrase, life is good. And there really isn't nothing wrong with feeling that way, but please understand that that is a fleeting thing. But people fool themselves into thinking they've got years of time and nothing bad is ever going to come their way. Well, if you can go find that fantasy land, let me know where it is and I'll come join you. A lot of these folks have deluded themselves into thinking there's no problem with wasting time doing things that do not amount to a hill of beans, thinking that time is just so plentiful. And I realize when you're young, a lot of times you feel like you got centuries ahead of you. I understand that. And then there are some people that are out there living sinful lives and have absolutely no thought for God or for tomorrow. Some people, rather than making themselves useful to man and God, spend their time, a lot of them, whining and belly aching and being just plain ungrateful for what they do have. They don't even think about it, of how blessed they are. But listen carefully to what Jesus said in Luke chapter 12 and verse 16. It said, He spoke a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do? Because I have no room to bestow my fruits. And he said, This will I do. I'll pull down my barns and build greater. And there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I'll say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease and eat and drink and be merry. But God said to him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee, and whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? And so is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. I want to give you a question to think about, because I thought about it real hard and long Thursday while I sat in the funeral of a 44-year-old young lady. My question for you is, what if you knew? What if you knew for a fact you only had 1 month to live? 30 days. Would you waste it with belly aching? What would you do? 30 days and you're done. You're out of here. There's nothing you can do to stop it. You know you're going to go off of this planet in 30 days. What would you do? Would you waste your time spinning your wheels and looking at your phone all day? I bet that would cure people of cell phone addiction, wouldn't it? I got 30 days. I ain't got time to sit here and punch that thing all day long and wonder what Dave is doing on Facebook. I spent an entire day yesterday away from cell phones. Praise God. Yes. That felt good. It was locked up in a locker while I was out getting burnt to a crisp out in the sun. And then there was one idiot out in a wave pool with a cell phone walking around. I wanted to take that thing away from him and toss it over in 8 feet of water. Wasting his life because he can't get away from that phone. Would your life change from what it is right now for the better if you knew you had 30 days to live? Would it? I bet it would change drastically. You probably would do very little of what you normally do during the week right now. Your priorities would change. Things would be so different. I think of different people that we've had in our congregation where I saw that happen to them. A lot of you never met Kathy Edwards, but you're still living in the wake that she left when she passed away here. Amen. Kathy Edwards never sung a song until she came down with cancer. A lot of people don't know that. Everybody thought she was a professional singer that had sung for years. She'd never sung anywhere in her life until she found out she had cancer and that it's going to be terminal in a few years, but you got cancer. She recorded 5 or 6 albums, went from church to church to church. That's how I met her. We were in visiting another church over in town one night, and I looked up at the end of the row and saw who I thought was Kathy. She used to be called Kathy Akers, and I told my wife, I said, "Oh my God, that's Kathy Akers up there. What in the world is that heathen doing up in here?" And then she probably thought the same thing when she looked back and saw me sitting on the back row. And so I went up to her afterwards and got to talking, and she'd gotten saved and had started singing, and we didn't even know anything about her having cancer, and she started coming here and singing, and then wound up being part of our fellowship, and we ministered to her and she ministered to us during the entire time. She lived wide open. Oh my gosh, you'd see her pull up in the driveway, you'd go hiding in the back of the building. She was just, let's do it now, let's do it right now, whatever it was. And she witnessed to everybody, and she was just like burning that fuse like it wasn't going to be but 30 seconds of it left. And she lived that way until she died. She touched hundreds of people, all because she knew that she didn't have much time. And she put one huge dent in this world before she left. Let me tell you something. I think of Brother Oscar. He was a man who had been involved in almost every facet of ministry. He did a lot of stuff that most of y'all that knew him for a long time didn't have any idea he was doing. A real miracle worker with his organizational skills. You can look at my desk when you come in my office, and that's what Mama called Irish bookkeeping. You have to hunt through the trash can, you have to hunt under the desk, you have to look under a pile of CDs or a McDonald's bag or something to try to find an invoice or a paper, but not Oscar. He was perfectly organized and he knew exactly what to do, and he really saved my hide on many occasions. He served God like a dying man. Any moment. And he served God like he was going to leave this world at any moment. And he knew that his time was short. He knew that. But he took that time to do everything he could with the Lord, traveled with his wife. They went all over the country. He spent time with her. He loved everybody he met, and he went full bore until he left this world. He did it right. Beth Branham, you heard Mike talking about her. 44 years old. She had had cancer for about 5 or 6 years. I remember the day her and her husband came to Donna and I in the office, and she told us what the doctor had said. She fought it with every breath she had. She served God with all of her heart, stood beside her husband the entire time that he was ministering over there. Loved her husband with all her heart and set an example for everybody she met with kindness and love until finally there came the morning that she went over to the hospital, and she told her husband, "I think the Lord is calling me home." And moments later, she was gone. And again, like Mike said, I've never seen anybody preach their wife's funeral like that. I've never even seen anybody preach their wife's funeral. But my goodness, what a powerful message and a powerful eulogy and a testimony about her. She knew her time was short, and she lived like it. Bill Martin. Now a lot of people don't know this about Bill. He had an aneurysm in the back of his neck. I think it was in the back there, wasn't it? Somewhere deep in the chest or whatever. The doctor said you could drop dead at any second, that you had no guarantee of anything because that thing could bust, and no doctor could save you. Nobody could, because they couldn't get to it. And he just said, "You know what?" He said, "I'd rather die on my feet serving God than laying in a bed whining about it." And he did. He went out on the road, set up sound equipment. I know you probably cringed every time he picked the speaker up. Doctor said you lift something over 10 pounds and it could bust and you'd drop dead right there. But he went right on. Did it for the longest kind of time. Did it for years. He did it with a fervency that most ministers wish they had. served him even from a wheelchair. We had to take the doors off the hinges up here because his wheelchair was a little bit bigger than the average wheelchair, and brought him in here, and he did his final concert here with us. Awesome. Lived like he was dying. Yeah. Because he knew that he could at any minute. Let us not leave out Pastor Bowley. Oh my goodness. He was a man that was dying for years. The person who drew his blood and did his lab work was so blown away by him that she asked if she could come and speak one time, and she said that she brought his chart, and she said, look at this blood work. She said, everything that I know in medical science says this man should be dead and not being able to even sit up and talk. His blood was off the scale, the readings, and said you could not be alive and have those readings. And he ministered for years with 2 liver transplants, a blood sugar over 600. Yeah. Everything, kidney failure, you name it. And he ministered everywhere. He came in every day. And like I said, he came in here one morning for homecoming, and there was an Episcopalian lady back there sitting right in front of where Glenn was at. You know, the Episcopalians, they're not real familiar with the way that we hoop and holler. And she was sitting there thinking it was going to be, you know, one of them nice quiet services. And Clifton come walking through the back about 10 minutes into the service and let her a Ric Flair, woo, just as loud. And she got down on the floor. She thought we were under attack. They had to go and tell her that it was all right. It was just Pastor Bowley. The church always started late because he had to go and hug everybody in the church before he made it up here to help open the service. So they had to keep that music going. He loved people that nobody else loved. He brought scores of people to Christ that nobody wanted and nobody could reach because he could do it. He could walk up to them right on the street. He had several supernatural gifts that I have not yet seen in anyone else since that day. An amazing person. And even the night before he died, he was supposed to not have been able to even move. He was so sick. He got up out of the bed, went across the hall, and laid hands on a patient. The nurse watched it. Said, I don't see how he got up. He's not supposed to be able to move. And he died the next day. An amazing person. And he did not waste one single minute of his time. He used it to the very fullest. So let me ask the question. What is keeping you from living like that? Think you've got too long to live to do that? I was reading the obituaries where a 19-year-old boy over at Liberty working in the library dropped dead from a heart attack the other day. He had no idea when he went into work that he was going to have a heart attack at the age of 19. And y'all know I'm not morbid at all. Nobody has more fun than I do, but I want you to think real hard about this. The book of James in chapter 4, he says, whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, then vanisheth away. Not one single person in this auditorium, people listening by radio, watching by TV or whatever, not one single person, nobody has a promise of tomorrow morning. All you got is right now. This is it. This is all we have right now that's guaranteed. And I do not know how long that runs out in the day. So what would you do? I want you to think, what would you do if you knew you had 30 days left? I know some people that have thought long and hard about it, and they get it. Now, I'm not here to embarrass any of the members, but I believe that Jim and Ann get it. I think they get it. I've watched how they treat each other. And when she had that little scare, that just pulled them closer and tighter together. He took his wife out for a whole week in the wilderness and went camping with her. That's not a waste of time, buddy. Let me tell you something. That's time well spent. You get with your wife or you get with your husband, you spend time with them. had a preacher say that I was just real unholy and I wasn't very spiritual because me and my wife took off about once every 2 weeks and got us a hotel room somewhere and went out of town, and that I just want a real good pastor because I did that. Well, you know what? I'm sorry. I ain't apologizing for that. He'll probably die pretty bitter and lonely if the truth is told. At least that's kind of what I'm hoping, you know. I'm just playing. No, sir. This is my wife right here. We've been together 32 years. That's my treasure. The Bible talks about loving your wife and loving your husband and all that, and we spend every minute that we possibly can. I will die broke. My children, sorry guys, will borrow money to bury me most likely. I bet they'll give me the cheapest funeral you ever seen in your life. They'll have that old blue cardboard box in here that the bottom will fall out if they don't hold it up underneath it when they go out of here with it. Or they might do like my daddy said, if I died before he did, he was going to cremate me and put my ashes on his garden so I'd work around the house for once in my life. But you know what? I don't care. Once I'm gone, y'all, you know, they talk about donating their body to science. In the condition that I'm in, I'm going to have to donate mine to science fiction. I don't care what you do with me then. I will die knowing that I spent my last dime going to have some fun with her, and so be it. I do not apologize for that. And let me tell you, everybody needs to think about doing some of that. Go spend some time with your family and do some things together. I tell you somebody else who I believe gets it. I believe John and Cindy get it. Yeah. That brush that he had with nearly dying because of his kidney. I see John posting stuff where they're doing all these acts of kindness for people that were kind to them, and at the hospital, and there was a lady at the hospital, didn't know him from Adam, and she's got this beautiful engraved glass piece that he did because she treated him nice, and that made her day. And you know that you know what? Those are things that are important. It may not be big in the eyes of the world, but showing people love that had no idea it was coming, that's important. That's the big thing right there. Husbands and wives need to love each other while you can, because today is the only day that you're promised together. Love your families. Oh, I know all of our families are sorry and low down. You know, I know that because we don't see them in here. But you know what? You still got to love them anyway, okay? Bible didn't say just love everybody that ain't a heathen, you know. It says love them all. To love them all. They might be surprised if you show them love. I tell you, there was a husband and wife that had been so businesslike with each other. They just had their routine every day, and it was no big deal. And one day, the husband, he got a ride home from his co-worker. And on the way home, the co-worker said, hang on just a minute. He stopped by the florist and got a dozen roses and a box of candy, and then he hit it on. He said, I'm going to stop by my house first before I drop you off. And so he went by the house, and he goes up to the door, and his wife met him at the door, and he gives her the flowers and the candy and just says, oh, I love you so much. You're God's gift to me. I'm just so glad I married you. And he hugged and kissed her and went on in the house. Next day, that guy said, well, you know, maybe I need to try that with my wife. So on his way home, he got the flowers and the candy. He goes up to the door, and his wife meets him at the door, and he hands her that stuff, and he says, oh, I just love you so much. You're the greatest gift that God ever gave me, and I'm so happy I married you. She just burst into tears and just started bawling and crying. That wasn't what he was expecting. And he said, what's wrong with you? She said, what's wrong with me? She said, I overslept this morning and had to jump up, and I burnt breakfast, and I got the kids to school late. I came home, and the washing machine flooded the floor, and the commode stopped up, and now you've come home drunk. If you treated your wife like that, would they think you were drunk? You treated your husband that way? Have they expecting nothing for so long that they think something's wrong with you when you do what is right? Maybe it's time to shock your spouse, okay? Time is short, people, I'm telling you. And it ain't got nothing to do with sickness. Everything that I have seen in the Word of God tells me that Jesus could be on his way right now. Bible talks about that the only thing that has to happen before even the Antichrist comes on the scene, and the church has to disappear before that happens. It says a great falling away will occur. We see that. We're right in the middle of a falling away right now. Right now, falling away. And all the things that Jesus said would have to happen before he'd come to get his bride, it's all done. I've been researching this all my life. Folks, if you're going to do something for the Lord, you need to be busy doing it now. If you're going to treat your family the way you ought to, you need to be doing it now. Get out of the house and do something for Jesus. Tell someone what he did for you so they can have what you have. Get yourself up out of that bed and get into the house of God and thank him for what he's already blessed you with, and bring someone with you. Because as soon as you breathe your last, soon as you're gone, there's no soul sleep, you don't disappear into nothingness. You will stand before the Lord. Good or bad, you're going to stand before the Lord and you're going to give an account for what you did in this life. Paul the apostle lived life to the fullest after he got saved. He was one horrible man. People were terrified of him because he hated the churches, and he went after Christians, and everybody that claimed to know Christ, he'd arrest them and throw them in jail and have them put in prison and have them killed because he thought he was doing God a favor, until he met the Lord personally. And it turned him around, and he went out, don't tell me God don't have a sense of humor, planting churches. After he got saved, he went and did the very thing he never believed he would do. He was the greatest terror to the church, and then he was the greatest cheerleader for the church. And he went around planting churches, and he went right on serving God up until the last moment. And he made this statement in 2 Timothy 4. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but also unto them that love his appearing. The moment you finish your course, and only God knows what your course is, the moment you're done, you're out of here. There isn't a doctor nor a surgeon or anybody on this earth that can keep you here when Jesus said he's done. Let's bring him up. Bring him home when you finish your course. Are you doing what he asked you to do? Are you living life like you only have a short while to live, or are you just living like it doesn't really make any difference? I've got years and years and years. Nobody knows. Nobody has that promise. I think we should take the example of those that have gone on before us here and live wide open. Make it when people see you coming, they go hide. Because they said, oh my gosh, he or she's going to have so much to say and so much to do, and all that energy just makes me tired watching them. I would much rather go out on my feet than laying around whining, woe is me. You'll always find somebody worse than you are, or worse condition than you are, if you go out there and look. We need to pay attention to what is important right now, especially in these last days, and quit worrying about the things that don't amount to a hill of beans. Let's bow.
Sheltered the higher I have soared in my dreams, the harder I fall. And sometimes I wonder if dreams are worth dreaming at all. But my disappointments can't keep me blinded and blue. But then I'm reminded of sweet peace I have, Lord, in you. The only real peace that I have, dear Lord, is in you. The only real peace that I have, dear Lord, is in you. With all life's frustrations, I need you. I know I do. 'Cause the only real peace that I have, dear Lord, is in you. Sing this with us. The